Hey everybody, sorry for the delay here. I know we had a little bit of technical difficulties getting Rich set up with StreamYard and the PowerPoint, so I am going to take the handoff here and do some data sufficiency with you guys today. Now, what's kind of cool is that last time we all met here on my GMAT Club Live, we did a lot with uh, remainders, and we're going to continue the theme of number properties, but we are going to incorporate um, some data sufficiency with number properties today. So there's some cool little tricks I want to teach you guys. We're going to do just a handful of questions. Keep in mind, these questions are also on target test prep, so we have a boatload more of them that can be seen in our course through the free trial, which I'm sure we'll talk about at the end here. And if you guys have questions as we move through everything, just let me know, and certainly I can address those questions. So one of the things that I want to discuss to start, one of my favorite things to discuss is just how to get started with your GMAT Quant studying, because this is important. Yes, understanding the content is huge, right? But you do need to know how to study, and you need to be able to set up a study plan. So this is going to come in steps. So let me expand the presentation. I don't need to for you guys to be able to see me. So let me just expand it and put it in presentation mode, and then we'll talk about this here. So how to start your GMAT Quant studying. If you guys, and this is GMAT studying in general, it's not just related to Quant. If anyone here is brand new to the GMAT, then this is huge, because you need to have a process that you follow to get up to speed with your studying. So the first step is you need to understand the exam. You need to learn what's on the exam, hence learn what is tested and how it's tested, right? If you don't do that, or you don't know that, then it's going to be a struggle. So what does that mean? Well, learn about the different question types on the GMAT. Learn about data sufficiency. Learn about problem solving, which is regular multiple choice. Learn about sentence correction, critical reasoning, and reading comprehension, and then do some practice questions of those types, right? Now, why is that so important? Well, it's important because the next thing you need to do, or step 3, is getting your baseline score. And without your baseline score, you're never going to know where you're starting to, and you're never going to know where you need to get to, right? So the point is that if you don't do the first 2 steps, you're going to jump into that practice test, and it's going to feel like it's in a different language. And what'll happen is a couple things. One, you may get so disfranchised with the test, and your confidence might take such a hit that you're going to be skittish and wanting to move forward with your prep. And 2 is it's not going to really be a fair shot or an accurate representation of your skills, because look, if you don't know what a data sufficiency question is, I can't expect you to get that type of question right without learning about it first. Now, with all that said, don't be scared to take the practice exam. Don't be scared to get your baseline score, because if you are, you're going to be in a situation where you're never going to want to take it, but then you're never going to know your starting point. So what'll happen is you're going to get 3-4 months into your prep, say, well, where am I right now? You take your practice test, let's say you score 600. Well, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything, because you don't know where you started from, so you don't know how far you've come. I've tutored students, and it's been so integral that they've had to take this practice test to get their baseline, because at the beginning they barely knew algebra. So even when they were to take a test, let's say another 3-4 months in, and they still weren't near their score goal, they had to understand how low of a point they came to start, and how to get to where they needed to get to. Now, after your baseline score, you need to select study materials, the right ones, a good study resource. Try to get one main one. You don't want to have conflicting ideas of how you should be dealing with questions. So sign up for trials. At Target Test Prep, we offer a full access $1 trial. And the purpose of that is so you can get a full look at the course, how, our study plan, how things would look moving forward. and then create a foolproof study schedule. Now, if you have the right course, um, you basically will have a study plan there for you. We provide one. It's one of the best parts about TTP, in my opinion. And you don't be, and the reason is you don't want to have to worry about what you're studying when you sit down to study. You're going to be doing a lot of GMAT studying if you're going for a top score. I say 18 hours a week is usually a bare minimum or a floor to shoot for. So you don't want to have to spend 25% of that time wondering what the heck you're going to do every time you sit down. You want a study plan that allows you to deal with topical learning, which means focus on a topic, practice it till you've achieved mastery, and then being able to also sprinkle in mixed sets of different randomized topics so you get used to how things are going to be on the actual GMAT, and you kind of rinse and repeat this throughout your study plan. So those are some basic tips I just wanted to share about getting started with the GMAT. Yes, it's about quant here, but it's really about both verbal and quant and getting your study plan done in general. Now, I just want to see if there's any questions that has arisen because I want you guys to ask questions as I go through these slides here, and I'll be happy to answer them. I see there are no questions, so let's get back to my slide. Okay. So today we are going to do a lot of um, a bunch of number property things. One question is not going to be um, as you'll see, it's one question is going to be a Roman numeral question, but Roman numeral questions are data sufficiency in nature. Now, the one thing you'll notice here is, what did I not do? Well, I didn't put the answer choices here. One of the things that's super important for everybody is to have those answer choices memorized. I literally just made a video on it yesterday, a 50-second short video. Why do we want to have the answer choices memorized for data sufficiency? Because they're the same. And if you don't maybe realize this, but in data sufficiency or on the GMAT in general, having an extra 10 seconds spared is huge. Because let's say you save 10 seconds on 10 questions. Well, that's 100 seconds, which is a minute, a little bit over a minute and a half. That's time that you could use at the end of your exam. Um, so anyhow, it's important to know that. And of course, the answer choices, and I'm just going to fix this right here. Just notice this. This is divisible. So evenly divisible by 7. The answer choices are, of course, that A is statement 1 alone is sufficient. B is statement 2 alone is sufficient. C is that both statements together are sufficient. D is that either statement is sufficient. And E is that neither are. So what I want to do, everybody, because I want you guys to be active participants in today's lesson webinar, I want you guys to do this question out. I'm going to give everybody a minute, and I'm going to just have you guys put your answers in the chat box. And once you guys have added those in, I'm going to go through the solution and we can kind of go through it together. But I'm going to give everybody a minute or so to do this problem out. I see someone already did. So keep that going. And I do see there's a question in the chat, and I will respond to that question once we go through the solution to this one here. I see there's 2 questions. So let me be quiet for a minute and let you guys go through this question here. All right, I see we have some questions here. Um, some answers rather. A lot of good answers. So, one of the things that I've noticed with data sufficiency questions is when you have questions that are very or statements that are very, very similar, um, plus or minus, um, just a couple things, right? So notice this question here. What's different? Well, we've got a coefficient of 2, we've got a coefficient of 7. Yeah, but we have integer values here. Both happen to be multiples of 7. So there's not the only thing that's really changed is this coefficient and this coefficient, right? So how do we deal with that? Well, let's go through it together. One thing that's important is you need to split the division here, right? So 7 goes into 147 um, 21 times, and 2x over 7, well, 7 doesn't go into 2. So the question is, how are we going to end up with an integer here? The only way is if x over 7 is an integer, which means that statement has to be sufficient. Now, we can follow the exact same process with statement 2, and I will repeat that simplification is huge in these questions. So again, we split the division and we say 22 plus 7x over 7 is an integer. What happens is divide by 7, divide by 7. 22 plus x is an integer. And that is not sufficient because x can be any integer in the universe of integers. It could be 1, and the answer would be no. It could be 7, and the answer would be yes. So the answer here is A. Does everybody understand that? And I'll keep the ink up for a moment while I address anything. Is everyone clear on that? I see we had a bunch of different answers here. All right, I feel like everybody is clear. Um, Getting back to some of the questions. Um, you have a baseline of 47, 48, and a 25 in verbal. Well, the one thing I would say about your study plan, if you're trying to get up to a 50-ish range on quant, obviously you got to keep studying for quant. Maybe study in like a 4-to-1 ratio verbal to quant. So you're doing the majority in verbal and the least in quant. There are ways to do that in TTP if that's your question. And certainly you can reach out to us and we can tell you how TTP could be used to your advantage as your study plan. And that same deal, I see Monica asked a question about having a study plan. We do have one in TTP. Where can you get TTP? Just go to our website, gmat.targettestprep.com, and you can sign up for our 5-day trial. You'll see the study plan. It'll be generated for you. You can peruse it. 5 days is a lot of time, so you can kind of see everything that we offer from A to Z. Why do I solve easy questions? I don't necessarily think this is a super easy question. I think, as you can see, not everybody got it right. So I would actually classify this as a medium question, but we are going to be doing some harder ones as we work through the slides today. So I definitely think the level of question that we're dealing with is medium and hard for sure. All right, so let me clear the screen. Let's go to the next question. Again, I'll give you guys a minute to work through this, and then we'll go from there. I just noticed something. that I want to fix in this question. It's that. Just notice the adjustment to that statement 2. Okay, I'm going to look at some of your answers. Okay, a lot of good answers here. All right, very good. So I see a few people, a lot of correct answers here. Some of you got it incorrect. So let's talk about this. So one of the things that's really, really important as it relates to any sort of divisibility situation in data sufficiency, something that I talk about a lot, is you want to simplify. If you just look at things at face value, a lot of times you're going to get the wrong impression of what's actually happening. So 96 xy over 6 is an integer. We could leave it like that, or we could simplify it out and say, you know what? 16xy is an integer. Now, what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that x times y can be any integer on the planet of integers, right? So that's insufficient. And there's something interesting that I want to talk to you guys about. I just want to see if anyone said answer choice C. Let me just see here. Did anyone say answer choice C? We had no takers on C, but there's a kind of a cool point I want to mention everybody in a second. Let me get back to this. Okay, so obviously statement 1 is not sufficient, right? Now statement 2, 20xy over 6 is an integer, right? If you take that at face value, some of you guys said the answer was B because you say to yourself, well, 6 doesn't divide into 20, so it has to divide into xy. That's not necessarily the case. We end up with 10xy over 3. That's the true value of what xy is a multiple of. So it's not that it's a multiple of 6, it's that really it's a multiple of 3. So what does that tell us if xy over 3 is an integer? Again, it just tells us that it's a multiple of 3. Now, the key is you can ask yourself, are all multiples of 3 multiples of 6? And the answer is no, they're not. If xy is 3, for example, the answer is no. If xy is 6, for example, the answer is yes. So with that in mind, statement 2 is not sufficient. Now, here's what's really cool about this. You can pretty much jump to answer choice E without looking at them together, assuming you simplified properly in statement 1. The reason I say this is because statement 1 gave us no good information. There wasn't anything. It was just general. It said x and y are integers. Well, guess what? We knew that in the given information, right? We knew that x, y were integers. Statement 1 wasn't giving us anything new. Thus, we can jump to answer choice E. Does that make sense to everybody? So for all those who put B, do you understand why E is now the correct answer? And yes, I was about to answer Pandey's question. Everyone good on this? All right, I assume you guys are. And Panda, yes, the reason why there is not an exact answer to your question is because of the adaptivity of the GMAT. And it really boils down to the level of question that you're getting wrong. If you get an easy question wrong, it's going to have a more dramatic effect, negative effect on your score than if you get a hard question wrong. So, um, keep that in mind. And the thing is, when you're on the test in real time, I don't even know if it's necessary to be thinking about these things, because really your focus needs to just be on the question in front of you and nothing else. Um, that's very, very important to understand. So these are things you don't really need to think about, because you're never going to be on the test and say, well, this question is a 700 level question, so I can get it wrong. I mean, the time you have is so little that if you think about anything but that question in front of you, you're going to be in trouble. So I wouldn't even start worrying about things like that. All right, let's move to the next question here. And hold on one second. I'm actually going to pull it over from another PowerPoint here. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about LCM and GC, well, really just least common multiple stuff. And this, the first question isn't going to be too bad for you guys. In fact, it should be pretty straightforward, but it's going to kind of bleed into another really, really important question that I want to talk about. So take a second, everybody, do this question out, and then we're going to do one more data sufficiency question, and then we can do some Q&A if you guys have any other random questions about stuff. All right, so pretty much all you guys um, got this question right here. This is just a plain old LCM question. They don't always have to ask you what the LCM is. The key word is, or the key kind of component here is that it's saying that n is divisible by two numbers. The moment you see that, you know you're dealing with LCM. And when it's saying which of the following must divide into n, the must divide into happens all the time. It means you need to find the minimum value of n, right? So do the LCM out. Now there's two options here. You can go the prime factorization route and take the largest value of any of the prime factors, right? So 15 breaks down to 5 and 3. 24 breaks down to 2 to the third times 3 to the 1. So what are the largest of all of these? Well, we have a 5, a 3, and a 2 to the 3. We have a 5 times 3 times 8. and that's going to give you 120. Another thing is you could just, I mean, if you recognize these numbers because they're used a lot, and you know that 120 is a multiple of 24, for example, and you can discern that it's a multiple of 15, that's another way to do it. Once you have it, nonetheless, you see that 60 and 120 have to divide into it, while 240 does not. So, you know, nothing crazy there, but that's just another way for them to ask you about LCM. So what I want to do now is I want to bring this full circle into a, I want to bring this into a, hold on, I'll just write this solution out real quick so we have it. I want to bring this into a data sufficiency question. And that data sufficiency question is going to kind of in a roundabout way also test you on LCM skills. So again, what we talked about here, take the biggest version of each. So that's 3 by 5 by 2 to the 3, which gives you 120. And of course, 120 and 60 must divide into 120, while 240 does not have to. All right, so let's get into this final question here. Give you guys a minute, talk about it, and we can go from there. And this is statement 2 here. All right. See what you guys got here. All right. So I see a bunch of correct answers, some incorrect answers. So this is a good question to do. So it's not C, and there's a couple cool things I want to teach you guys about right off the bat. And this actually goes back to something that I mentioned before. When a statement, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, when a statement gives you nothing of tangible value, C is off the board completely. So does everybody here get that? And I'm going to go to the comments to make sure you guys understand that point. It's a huge point. It's going to save you a ton of time in DS questions. Do you guys all understand that? Like if you can discern that a statement is going to do nothing for you, C is off the table. Well, don't worry. 60 doesn't have to be divisible by 24. We're going to get into that. But this is huge. This is something you can take with you for all of data sufficiency questions. Now, bigger question though is why statement 1, doesn't work, right? And why it's giving you no value. Well, it's giving you no value because you already knew that n was a multiple of 18. All multiples of 18 are multiples of 6, right? All of them. So statement 1, if we're looking at this and I'm just eliminating answer choices in this manner, when I know that statement 1 doesn't work, it's not just that statement 1 doesn't work so that we can then eliminate D. We can also eliminate C because it's not giving you anything new. If you couple this with statement 2, that's not going to give you any new information because you already know that n is a multiple of 18. And that, of course, supersedes the fact that it's a multiple of 6. So statement 1 is out, and we're not even going to have to use it. Now, why is statement 2 so useful, and why is the answer B, which many of you put? Well, the answer is B because first and foremost, we know that m is a multiple of 12 and 30, right? Well, what can we do with that information? As I already told you, we can get the LCM. The LCM is 60. You can do that using prime factorization, or you can do that using the multiples of numbers. Now, what we need to do with that is we then need to couple that with the minimum value that n can be. And that value is 18. So you ask yourself, at a bare minimum, is 60 by 18 divisible by 120? Now, to figure that out, don't multiply 60 by 18 and do long division. Begin the process of simplification, which will happen very quickly. 60 goes into 120 twice. And then following that, 2 goes into 18 9 times. So yes, it's an integer, which means any combination of multiples of 60 and 18, when divided by 120, will produce an integer. So the answer to this question has to be B. So what we could have done, if you were in a guessing situation, you could have said, all right, it's either going to be B or E. That's kind of cool. It gets you down to a 50-50 shot. All right, let's see if you guys have any questions, and then we can wrap on that question. Does anyone have any questions about that and anything that I said regarding, when a statement gives you no information, what you can then do with all of that? Any questions at all? All right, so I think we're good. Does anyone have any other questions about your GMAT? Anything in general that's coming to your mind as we're wrapping things up here? Any questions about, say, target test prep or anything along those lines? Any questions at all? All right. Well, to wrap up, everybody, I think you know about target test prep, and you've seen us, on GMAT Club. Yes, m times n is a multiple of 120. Correct. That's why the answer is. Let me go back to it. No, the answer is not. You're wondering if 18 times 30 gives you. Well, I can do that out. Give me a second. Well, let's just simplify it out. So 18, is that a multiple of 120? 30 goes in. No, it's not a multiple of 120. And the best way to do it is to simplify it down. 30 goes into 31 time. 30 goes into 124 times. The question is 18 over 4 an integer? No, it's not an integer. So the given information is not enough to tell us whether or not m times n is a multiple of 120, for good reason, because you're not supposed to be able to answer the question of data sufficiency with just the given information. Okay, so where was I? So anyway, if you guys are interested in TTP, we've had a ton of success. These are all some really cool success stories here. We've some of these folks have actually been interviewed on GMAT Club. I think Harrison may have been, as a matter of fact. I'm not sure, and Evan actually I think was too. So yeah, things have been going really well with our students. We've been able to get a lot of scores in the high 700s. If you're interested in TTP, like I mentioned, we have a 5-day free $1 trial, and it's full access. So check out the course. If you've just heard about it and want to know what it's all about, sign up for the trial. You really have nothing to lose. It's $1, but there's no auto billing. It'll expire if you don't, purchase a paid plan. We do have a pretty cool score guarantee, as you can see here. You can read about more of that, on our website. And yeah, so if you need anything too, feel free to reach out to us directly. We do have a bunch of free webinars that we offer as well, Thursdays and Fridays. So if you sign up for a trial, you'll be added to our mailing list for that. And it's always a pleasure to be here working with you guys. And I'm sure I'll be seeing everybody soon. So have a safe, healthy week. Thanks for hanging in there with the technical difficulties. And look forward to doing some more good stuff with you guys in the coming weeks. So have a good week, everybody, and thanks again.